This slideshow is about Jewish oppression. Jews have experienced incredible amounts of oppression from times of antiquity to modern day. Mark Twain, a popular author, noted the eternal nature of the Jew and how Jews have always been around. And it seems like despite them being such a small number of the total population, they've always experienced very heavy oppression. Mark Twain said, "All things are mortal but the Jew, all other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?" When looking at some of the common reasons for hatred of Jews, some of the most notable ones are that Jews were deemed responsible for the death of Jesus Christ, and Jews were blamed for the assassination of popular leaders, and Jews were often seen as greedy or dirty, and this continued with the Nazi ideology of Jews during the Holocaust. And even today, many people view Jews as people who run the world and have disproportionate success. Considering the Holocaust, Hitler and his followers believed, based on ethnocentrism and prejudice, that Jews were the lower race, and that the Nazis and those of Aryan blood were a superior race. Here are some of the things that Jewish people faced during World War II and the Holocaust. As you can see, they dealt with an incredible amount of suffering, awful living conditions, and awful treatment. During this time, over 6 million Jews were killed, including about over 1 million children. Even after the war, difficulties for the Jewish people still continued. As with this case, a 9-year-old Jewish boy in Kielce ran away from home and then blamed his disappearance on a local Jewish committee building. Although his story was not true, a large crowd of angry individuals, including about 1,000 workers from a steel mill, gathered outside the building, and after an unidentified individual fired a first shot, officials and civilians fired upon the Jews inside the building, killing some of them. Outside, the Jews were viciously beat as they tried to flee, and many were dead. By day's end, civilians, soldiers, and police had killed about 42 Jews and injured 40 others. Now moving onward to present day, some of the oppression that Jews face has to do with education, stereotypes, racist groups, and the inaccurate portrayal of Jewish culture. Starting with stereotypes, many people still think that Jews have very big noses, they're kind of nerdy, they often have careers in finances, they're often wealthy, and they have overprotective mothers. Even 19% of Americans answered probably true to the statement, Jews have too much control or influence on Wall Street. Looking at inaccuracy in representation of Jewish culture, The Fiddler on the Roof is a very popular example. Although the musical is widely acclaimed, it unfortunately misrepresents Jewish culture. Tevye and other Jews in the musical and in the film would know a lot of the reasons why they keep up with certain traditional cultural practices, such as having a certain amount of strings on a prayer shawl. However, in the famous song Tradition, Tevye explains that this is just tradition and he doesn't really know why he's doing it, which is something that a Jewish person would never say, and it doesn't really represent the Jewish culture in a positive light. Thinking about oppression, the KKK is a group that has persecuted and oppressed Jews, and a man actually killed 3 at Jewish centers in a Kansas City suburb. And as Abraham Foxman said, it's disturbing that with all of the strides we've made in becoming a more tolerant society, anti-Semitic beliefs continue to hold a vice grip on a small but not insubstantial segment of the American public. Moving on to oppression in education. In this picture of the United States, the boxes that are filled with a purple color represent different counties in the United States where at least one school in the county or district honors at least one Jewish holiday and gives the student body that day off, or the teachers as well that day off. Unfortunately, this is a very, very small amount of schools when comparing it to the larger United States. And one man, Mark Oppenheimer, wrote an article entitled "School's Out, But Why?", indicating his opinion that it's not necessary for non-Jewish children to take off school for the Jewish holiday. He argues that other measures can be taken to allow Jewish students to celebrate the holidays without disrupting the school schedule for everyone. But unfortunately, this idea in itself is actually based on an oppressive pattern in the US school systems that favors Christian children, with winter holidays beginning right before Christmas. And even in areas with low Jewish populations, it's important to recognize the value and importance of their holidays and do something so that these students either can have the day off and not feel guilty about missing class, or not miss important tests or other assignments. So some solutions with that could be to recognize the importance of holidays, even if there are only small numbers of Jews attending a school. And overall, both in education and in other areas, other institutions of society, and even internally, in order to attack and end oppression, it's important to recognize that we all have differences and to show respect and value as we positively acknowledge those differences and seek to learn from one another. And educators specifically can apply what they learn and use the knowledge that they have to help others to learn and to ultimately attack and end the oppression.